So let us kick off with the Times. Yeah.
Yes, they're leading with the story that's on pretty much all the front pages. So Trump has been arrested and charged. It's the first time a US president, a former US president, has been arrested and charged for crimes they committed whilst in office. Although it seems to happen a lot in other countries. I mean, in France, it just seems to be a rite of passage for any retiring president. They then go on and face criminal charges. And obviously in Brazil, in South America, Lula actually spent nearly 2 years in prison and has come back and become president again, which Trump could do. This seems to have just spurred his campaign on. The donations, financial donations are piling on. It's certainly given a lot of fuel to his grievance that he's being persecuted, because it looks like he is being persecuted. This is a very flimsy and very technical case that could all fall apart, and probably will fall apart because Trump's got very good lawyers. So it's a misdemeanor. It says he put hush money down as legal expenses, which is misrepresenting it, but then that misdemeanor then allowed federal offences around campaign finance to occur, but it's completely untested. I think they've made a huge mistake persecuting and prosecuting Trump like this.
And as far as we know, I've not seen this in black and white yet. Actually serving jail time would not necessarily preclude him from running if he was to get through it and out the other side.
He could be like one of those rappers who records an album over the phone. You know, he can become president from jail.
Well, the interesting thing would be if he does become president and is sent to jail, he could then commute his own sentence and get himself out. I mean, I'd love to see it. That would make the history books. Yes. Not that I necessarily want Trump to be president, but I'd want it just for that particular story.
And it would stop him going to the stump and making a fool of himself, wouldn't he, at the run-up to the election as well. There was a point, I mean, I remember during 2015 even, let alone into 16, and he was building and building. I remember saying on various sort of platforms, what people didn't seem to understand was his followers loved the fact that he kept getting away with stuff. You know, everyone else was going, how can you possibly think like, yes, it was like Arsenal were down to 9 men, but still holding on. You know, you didn't think, well, they deserve to be sent off.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no legal expert. I certainly think, no one's talked about this, but there's a legal case to say he should get that hush money back. Because if one thing that's not happened is hush. But you know what? If you've committed a crime, you can be held account for it. Everyone seems to be having these side arguments, these distraction conversations about whether it is political, whether other people weren't held to account for the same thing. Surely the general rule is, if you're guilty of a thing, you can be found guilty of a thing.
That is true in America, but we talked about this last night to some extent, but, you know, there is such a history of American presidents having this kind of thing go on. Trump has been portrayed as somebody who is simply, you know, a philandering fool, you know, whereas Kennedy and Clinton, to name but two, were at least as bad on this particular front.
And it seems a weird thing to try and get him on when it's such a flimsy case, when there are other things. I mean, there are a lot of cases, criminal and civil, I believe, being held against Trump. And some of them are around election interference, which is a much more serious charge and a much more sort of clear-cut and with a lot of precedent thing to prove.
Yeah.